I stood outside the courthouse with nothing but the clothes I was wearing, and a manila envelope of legal papers that said I'd lost everything. My wife had just walked away with our $3 million house, half of our assets, and a small, satisfied smile, like she'd won. As we stepped through the glass doors, she leaned toward me. I thought she might say something soft about our years together. Instead, she looked me in the eye and whispered, "You're pathetic." That word cut deeper than any argument in the courtroom. She left with Hank, my best friend since I was 20. He didn't even look back. That night, I parked behind a diner off Route 9, curled up in the driver's seat and tried to work out where it all went wrong. Around midnight, my phone rang, an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. A calm voice said, "Mr. Elridge, we've been trying to reach you for 15 years. This is the Gallon Private Banking Group in Zurich. We believe you're the beneficiary of an account belonging to Roy Elridge." I froze. My Uncle Roy had vanished nearly 20 years earlier. Then the man read an account number and paused. "Mr. Elridge, the balance in this account is $47 million. My heart hammered when he added, "There's something you should know about how it got there. My name is Thomas Elridge. I'm 51 now, and until last year, I thought I had a steady life. Not wealthy by most standards, but I built something real through hard work. I spent 30 years in construction, swinging a hammer, laying foundations, earning every dollar with sweat and busted knuckles. I believed in loyalty, family, waking up early, and going to bed tired. I thought that was enough." Callie and I met as teenagers and married when I was 21. She had a spark and a way of brightening a room without trying. We started with a one-bedroom near Poughkeepsie, some second-hand furniture, and big dreams. I took any work I could find, roofing, framing, remodels, while Callie waited tables by day and studied nursing at night. Those early years felt like a partnership. We celebrated our first tax return like a jackpot, built credit, bought a beat-up house, and poured everything into fixing it. I'd work until my hands were raw. She'd bring me lemonade and half sandwiches on the porch as we talked about the future. I loved her. Eventually, I formed my own crew. Jobs got bigger. One city contract changed everything. We went from scraping by to having real work. That's when I surprised Callie with the house. Classic brick ivy on the walls. Tall trees, 5 bedrooms, a wine cellar we hardly used, and a garden she said she'd fill with lavender, but never did. Westchester County. It cost $4 million. I paid most in cash and financed the rest. I thought I'd given her a dream. After the house, things shifted. Callie joined a country club circle and a charity board. Her hair was always done. She talked about wine tastings more than dinners at home. I told myself people change and I'd catch up. I tried to keep life simple. Weekends with our daughter Brandy. She's 23 now, smart and stubborn like me. Walking dogs, fishing when we could. My mother Eileenie still lived near Kingston, and every Sunday after church I'd bring her to the mansion for dinner, even when Callie wasn't thrilled. Then there was Hank, more than a friend. He'd been there through moving days, hunting trips, building decks. When my father died, Hank held my mother's hand at the funeral. I trusted him like family. I would have taken a bullet for him. I never noticed what was happening, or maybe I didn't want to see it. Callie and Hank started spending more time together. Charity events, late meetings. She said I was always tired. From work. I kept working, thinking it would show her I cared. But we drifted. We stopped talking about anything real. She began sleeping in the guest room. I'd lie awake thinking of our porch conversations, wondering how we'd drifted so far apart. I remembered something my Uncle Roy once told me when I was 17. He was the odd one in the family. Drove a Bentley, wore cufflinks, and always looked like he knew more than he said. He told me, "Tommy, never think a roof means safety. Sometimes it just keeps the truth from falling on your head." I didn't get it then. I do now. The collapse wasn't one big moment. It was a slow erosion. Trust wore away like stone in a river. I hoped she'd come back, that we'd fix things, but she was already gone. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What remained was paperwork. Even then I didn't expect how far she'd go. It was a Thursday, I'll always remember, because I come home early on Thursdays. I'd been working in Syracuse on a large deck with cedar planks. I finished early, drove home with mud on my boots, and a sore back, planning to surprise Callie with her favorite cannoli from that Italian place in White Plains. Maybe we could sit outside and talk, find a spark. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Hank's truck by the garage. He came by sometimes, nothing unusual. The house felt too quiet. I entered through the back, and upstairs I heard a laugh. Callie's laugh, the one that used to crinkle her eyes, but it wasn't for me. I didn't rush up. I walked slowly, each step heavier. At the bedroom door I heard Hank's voice and hers. I opened it. They were there. No panic, no shame, just the quiet of people who know they've been caught, but don't care enough to explain. Hank scrambled for a shirt. Callie sat on the bed, composed. She didn't look guilty. She crossed her legs, smoothed her hair, and in the calmest voice I'd ever heard said, "You're early." Hank tried to speak. I don't remember what he said. I wasn't listening. I turned away, went to the garage, sat on a stack of plywood, and stared at the floor for what felt like an hour. Everything that had festered over the years clicked into place. The late nights, the staged smiles, the way she distanced herself from Brandy, from my mother, from me. That night I slept in the guest room. The cannoli stayed boxed on the counter. The next morning it was in the trash, and Callie had filed for divorce. There was no confrontation, no pleading. She was done and wanted what she could get, half or more. I tried to be reasonable and settle quietly. She laughed and said, "You're the builder, not the brain. Let the court decide." She hired one of the state's priciest divorce attorneys, Donovan Sharpsuit, white smile, shark eyes. He dismantled my reputation in court, painted me as emotionally unstable and controlling, twisted facts until our life barely resembled what was true. They pulled texts out of context, called past subcontractors to testify about old payment disputes, subpoenaed financials from a rough recession year to suggest hidden assets. I sat suited too tight around the neck and watched my life being picked apart by strangers. Callie didn't cry. She wore black, hair pinned, legs crossed like she was watching a fashion show. When Brandy tried to testify for me about how her mother had changed, Callie wouldn't even look at her. After 9 months of hearings, the judge ruled the mansion to her, most savings, retirement split, and I was left with my tools, my truck, and a small, sparse apartment I rented for a roof over my head. That was my share. I wasn't surprised by the decision, only by how hollow I felt when it arrived. Not angry, not weeping, just numb, like I was watching someone else's life unfold while I stood in the background. Outside the courthouse I stood alone. Hank was already gone. I pictured him inside the house, helping her celebrate, pouring champagne into the crystal I'd unpacked. Callie passed with her lawyer. She glanced at me once, expressionless, leaned in and whispered, "You're pathetic." Then she walked away. I didn't follow. I climbed into my truck and sat behind the wheel with hands shaking. I had lost my wife, my best friend, my home, the future I'd spent 30 years building. I couldn't sleep in the apartment's white walls and stale air, so I drove north with no plan, just the need to escape city reminders. Around 10 I stopped at a diner off Route 9, killed the engine, leaned my head back, and my phone rang. An unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering, thinking it might be the court or Callie rubbing it in. A man with a calm European accent asked, "Is this Thomas Elridge?" I asked who was calling. He said, "Simon Keller with Gallon Private Banking Group, Zurich. We've been trying to reach you for several years. Are you Roy Elridge's nephew?" My Uncle Roy had been an odd family figure. My father's older brother, flashy suits, Cuban cigars, a Bentley generous on birthdays, then gone for years. He hadn't been seen since my 20s. Rumor said he moved to Europe, made a fortune, and disappeared. I told the man Roy was my uncle. He said, "Mr. Elridge, you're the sole listed beneficiary on a dormant account. We're required to contact you before automatic liquidation. The account's been untouched for 15 years. Your uncle specified funds be released only when you're no longer legally bound by a marriage license. Those words hit like cold air. I sat up. What amount are we talking about? I asked. He paused and read a balance. 47,889,42,177, as of this evening's statement. I couldn't speak. My hands trembled. The man explained that my uncle had funneled a series of off-book investments, private equity and old-world bank bonds into the account over 10 years before vanishing from the financial world. The money had grown quietly under legal protections. I asked why I hadn't been contacted earlier. He said my uncle was meticulous and didn't trust my spouse. Those were his instructions. He told us to wait until your marital status changed. He said, and I quote, "Tommy needs to be free before he remembers who he is." That sentence stunned me. I remembered Roy saying something similar when I was a teen, back when I thought he was just a flashy man with too many secrets. Once, when I was 16, he took me fishing and told me money's just a mirror, kid. It shows you what you're made of. Make sure you know who you are when you see the reflection. I never forgot it, even when I didn't fully understand. The banker went on, "We require your physical presence in Zurich to complete identification and finalize paperwork. We will cover travel and accommodation. The funds can be transferred wherever you instruct." I didn't agree immediately. I asked for time. He gave a direct number and understood. After we hung up, I sat in the dark cab of my truck, gripping the wheel like it was the only solid thing left. I looked up through the windshield, at the stars. Somewhere out there, my world had shifted. I didn't feel powerful, just small, confused, split between two lives. The next morning I called my mother and told her everything. She didn't scream or gush. She simply said, "That man always knew more than he let on. Maybe now you can finally breathe." Brandy was next. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Dad, you deserve this, but don't let it change who you are." I booked a flight to Zurich that afternoon without hesitation. I packed a duffel with 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, a worn leather wallet, and the watch my father gave me when I graduated high school. I left the rest behind. I didn't tell Callie. She didn't deserve to know. I wasn't after revenge or a courtroom. I wanted to see what my uncle had left me. Not only the money, but the reason behind it. Something told me this was about more than a bank balance. The plane landed in Zurich on a gray Monday. The city looked like a postcard. Clean streets, stone buildings, sharp suits everywhere. I hadn't left the country since my honeymoon, and now I walked through a Swiss airport, clutching a bank invitation. A driver met me. Black Mercedes, sign with my name, a firm handshake and no small talk. He drove through the city and up a hill overlooking Lake Zurich, stopping before a stone building with iron gates and gold letters. Gallon Private Banking Group. Inside smelled of leather and polish. I was led down a long hall into a private office that felt like a library. Mahogany shelves, a large globe and a lake view that calmed you. A man in his early 60s introduced himself as Simon Keller, the same voice from the call. "Mr. Elridge, welcome. We've been waiting a long time." He poured coffee, handed me a thick folder, and explained everything. Uncle Roy hadn't vanished by accident. He had withdrawn from the U.S. financial system, moved investments into a trust across multiple jurisdictions, used shell companies, and older banking channels. It wasn't illegal, it was intentionally private. In the folder were real letters Roy had written to me, held sealed until my divorce was final. In the first letter he wrote, "Tommy, this may not make sense at first. I watched you from a distance. I saw how hard you worked and the kind of man you became. I wanted to leave you something, freedom more than money. I couldn't do that while you were married to that woman. I'm sorry, but I never trusted her. I saw through her long before you did." Another letter quoted an old journal entry. "Tommy builds with his hands. He thinks with his heart. He'll be a better man than I was." I had to stop reading, my eyes filled. For years I'd believed Roy had forgotten us. Instead, he'd been planning, Simon slid a document across the table authorizing full release of the funds to any account I named. He outlined total assets, stocks, gold, and even a private villa in the south of France that was technically mine. My hands shook as I signed. In an instant, my life shifted again. But it wasn't only about money. The flight home felt different. I wasn't the same man who left. The bitterness from the divorce remained. But something inside me had changed. I felt grounded, not because of millions, but because I realized I hadn't lost everything. I had been stripped down to who I actually was. The first call after landing was to Brandy. I told her everything. She didn't ask for cash. She asked, "Does this mean you're coming back home?" I said yes. Home wouldn't be the tiny apartment, nor the mansion Callie lived in with Hank. I bought a ranch outside Nashville, open land, a wraparound porch, room for Brandy to visit. I fixed it myself, installed windows, laid flooring, built the deck, each nail with purpose. A week later, Callie found out. She called. I let it ring, then answered on the second call. "Tom," she said softer than I'd heard in years. "I made a mistake. I never stopped loving you. We can try again." I let her speak, and then replied, "You didn't love me when I had everything. You loved what I gave you. Now you want back because of what I'm worth on paper. I'm not the same man you walked away from." I waited, then said, "I forgive you, Callie. But I'll never forget what you said outside that courtroom, and I'll never be yours again." I hung up. Hank left a voicemail. "Tom, man to man. I messed up. Things got complicated. I should have been honest. I deleted it without listening. I didn't need apologies or vindication. I needed peace, and I found it. The last gift from my uncle wasn't Swiss francs or deeds. It was the truth. He'd seen what I couldn't and gave me the means to rebuild. Not just a house or a bank account, but a life that belonged to me again, and I refused to waste it. Now I wake before the sun like I always did, but instead of rushing out in work boots, I sit on the porch of my new home and listen to the quiet. The house is modest, a ranch with a long gravel drive, an old oak and a creaky porch swing I built with my own hands. I don't want marble floors or chandeliers. I want honesty, peace, and a silence free of guilt. Brandy visits often. She brings her guitar, sits on the porch edge, and plays while I grill steaks or sip coffee. She talks about her life and the cafe she hopes to open. I offered to fund it, but she insisted on earning it. That's how I know she'll make it. She's steady with a spark of fire. I hope she learns to love better than we did. My mother, Eileen, still lives in the house I grew up in. She refuses to move despite my offer. "I have everything I need right here," she says. "You don't always need to upgrade to move forward. Sometimes standing still in the right place is enough." Callie never called again. Hank never showed. Their choices are theirs to carry. I don't wish them pain, but I don't carry their story anymore. I've spent months learning to enjoy stillness. I bought a shepherd mix named Boone, who follows me everywhere. I joined a local volunteer group, helping build ramps, decks, benches, work that reminds me hands still matter, no matter how heavy your account balance. I also started a foundation, the Elridge Grant, to support single fathers rebuilding after divorce. I remember nights in my truck, not knowing where to go or who to call. No one should feel that alone. If I can help one man get back on his feet, then maybe everything lost and gained will mean more. The biggest lesson? Your worth isn't what you lose or own. It's what you rebuild when you're stripped down. Money didn't fix the betrayal or erase the pain, but it gave me a second chance, and I used it to become the man I was before life wore me down. If you're watching and you've been broken, if someone walked out and took everything, know this: there's something inside you that can't be taken. It's still there. Dig deep, protect it, build around it, and let it lead you home. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, please do 3 things. Like the video to help it reach more people. Comment with your story or which part hit you most. And subscribe, there's more ahead. This isn't the end of my story, it's the start of something better. Thanks for being here.